The movie begins with Beth in a taxi, where the driver, Zane, asks her, "Is this your first time in Croatia?" She replies, "Yes." He then stops the car and tells her, "We've arrived at the address." Beth gets out of the taxi, and when she tries to pay him, he says the fare has already been paid with a Visa card. She thanks him and gives him a tip, so he hands her a card with his number on it, saying, "If you need to go anywhere else, call me." Beth takes the card and thanks him. Her friend Katie comes down and hugs her, saying, "I can't believe you're here with me." When Beth thanks Katie for paying the taxi fare, Katie tells her she paid using her ex-husband's Visa card. They go up to the apartment Katie rented, which is very luxurious, and they stand together on the balcony. Beth gives Katie a gift, a necklace made of black onyx, which Katie loves. Katie thanks her, saying, "I love you so much." However, from her expression as she hugs Beth, it's clear something is bothering her. Later that evening, Beth talks to her husband through a video call and greets her little daughter, Asta, who is sitting next to her father, Rob. Beth asks her husband how she looks in the dress she's wearing, and he responds, "Anything you wear will look beautiful on you." Katie approaches Beth and, upon seeing she's talking to her husband, greets him. Afterward, when they leave the apartment, they meet Sebastian, the building owner, greet him, and then move on. At the restaurant, Katie orders the most expensive dishes. Beth asks, "Isn't this too much?" Katie responds, "I won't pay a thing from my pocket. I'm using my ex-husband's Visa card since it hasn't been cancelled yet." Beth asks Katie how she's doing after the divorce, and apologizes for not being there for her during that time. Katie tells her she understands Beth was busy taking care of her newborn back then, and expresses happiness that they're finally spending this vacation together. Katie asks Beth about her relationship with her husband. Beth says, "It's fine, but we've been living like siblings for about a year now." Katie asks, "Then why haven't you split up?" Beth explains that her husband is very good to her daughter, and that's what matters most to her. After dinner, Beth sees Katie talking angrily on the phone and learns that her ex-husband has cancelled the Visa card. Beth offers to pay the bill, but Katie refuses. Beth suggests returning to the apartment, but Katie insists on continuing the night out elsewhere. They get in a taxi with Zane and stop in front of a nightclub. Katie receives a phone call, and while she talks, Beth asks Zane, "Are you from Syria?" He replies, "Yes, I came to Croatia after the war." Katie ends her call, and she and Beth get out of the taxi to enter the club, where they sit at the bar. Katie points to two young men sitting nearby and says to Beth, "What do you think of them?" But before Beth can respond, Katie pulls her over to meet them. Beth is reserved, so Katie encourages her, saying, "Loosen up. One night with these guys will break the routine and boredom in your life." They continue drinking together. The next morning, Beth wakes up with a severe headache and can't remember anything from the night before. She looks for Katie in the apartment but doesn't find her. She recalls a blurry image of herself arguing with Katie. When she goes into the kitchen, she finds a broken glass with blood on it, which frightens and worries her. Beth calls her husband, Rob, and tells him she can't find Katie in the apartment. Rob asks, "Did you two have a fight?" Beth recalls the blurry memory but says, "No." Rob reassures her that Katie might have gone out to buy something and suggests she go for a walk instead of staying alone in the apartment. Beth agrees. Beth goes downstairs to ask Sebastian about Katie, but he tells her he hasn't seen her. He also mentions that, according to the house rules, parties aren't allowed, and he adds that Katie owes him rent for the two additional guests who stayed in the apartment that night. Beth realizes Katie wasn't alone the previous night. Beth goes to the police station, but the investigator, Pavic, mocks her, saying Katie probably left with the two guys they spent the night with and sold her out. Beth asks to file a missing person report, but he tells her she has to wait 24 hours before doing so. Another investigator tries to help Beth, but Pavic stops her, and Beth leaves the station. Beth calls Zane and asks him for the name of the nightclub they went to. Zane takes her there, and when she asks the bartender about Katie, he denies knowing her. Zane speaks harshly to the bartender in a local language Beth doesn't understand. Later, Zane tells her that the two young men, Matteo and Luca, work as companions for female tourists, and the bartender knows nothing about them other than their names. Beth returns to the apartment and hears a noise in the bedroom. She runs, thinking it's Katie, but finds Sebastian packing her belongings. He tells her it's the last day of the lease. Beth asks where she can stay, and he offers to rent her a room, which she accepts. The next day, Beth finds Mateo and Luca's Facebook page. She calls Zane and tells him she found them. Zane arranges to meet the two guys under the pretense of hiring them for a party. When they arrive and see Beth, they run away. Zane chases one of them, catches him, and threatens to throw him into the sea if he doesn't confess. The guy admits they spent the night with Katie and left at 3 a.m. after stealing her bag and pawning it. Zane and Beth retrieve the bag and phone from the pawn shop. Zane asks Beth not to mention him in the investigation so his residence permit won't be revoked. Beth goes to the police and tells the investigator everything. She agrees to undergo a blood test to check for any traces of drugs in her system. The doctor tells her the results will take 24 hours to come out, and then Beth calls Kate's ex-husband and informs him about her disappearance. He says, "Don't worry, she always loves to draw attention to herself. Maybe she's just playing a prank on you." She responds, "It's impossible for Kate to do that to me." When she asks, "Did she say anything to you during your last call?" he tells her he hasn't spoken to her in months. She replies, "How can that be? She called you 2 days ago about the visa." He asks her, "Visa for what?" When she returns home, she places Kate's phone on the charger and falls asleep. Upon waking, she tries to unlock the phone but discovers it uses facial recognition and fails to open it. Later, she goes downstairs and finds Zane waiting for her to help search for Kate. He suggests they have dinner together. At that moment, Rob, her husband, unexpectedly appears in front of her. She asks in surprise, "What brings you here?" He responds, "Who is this?" She explains that it's Zane, the driver who is helping her search for Kate. Zane excuses himself and leaves. She asks Rob, "Who did you leave Esther with?" He replies, "I left her with my parents." Rob then gets angry and says, "You were going to have dinner with the driver, who might even be the one who kidnapped your friend?" She bursts into tears but he later apologizes. The next day, Beth receives a call from the police, summoning her to the morgue. There, she finds Kate's body. Officer Pavich informs her that they found the body in the sea. She asks, "Was she pushed, or did she fall on her own?" The officer replies that it was a murder case. Beth collapses in tears from the shock. The following day, Beth wakes to find Rob sitting on the bed. He tells her he couldn't sleep, and can't get the image of Kate in the morgue out of his mind. When he asks her, "Will you come back with me?" she responds, "I need to stay and finish some procedures." He says, "All right, I'll wait for you at home." After Rob leaves, Beth requests to see Kate's body again to say goodbye. She goes to the morgue and asks the officer to leave her alone. Once alone, she takes Kate's phone from her bag and places it in front of Kate's face, successfully unlocking it. The officer suddenly returns, and she quickly hides the phone. Before leaving the morgue, she asks to use the bathroom. There, she opens the phone and is shocked to discover messages revealing that Kate had been having an affair with Rob. Kate had been asking him to leave Beth and stay with her. Beth also learns that Rob had previously traveled to Croatia and spent a night with Kate. Overwhelmed by the betrayal, Beth collapses in despair. Later, Beth accompanies the officer to the station, where the investigator tells her that blood samples from both her and Kate contained traces of drugs. The investigator also confirms that the two young men they were with have alibis proving their whereabouts at the time of the crime. Nightclub patrons also testify that Beth and Kate had argued at the club. Beth responds, "No, we were just speaking loudly." When the investigator asks, "Are you hiding anything from us?" Beth recalls the messages she saw but denies hiding anything, saying, "No, I'm not hiding anything." Later, the officer drives her home, takes her passport, and warns her not to travel until the case is resolved. Afterwards, Beth calls Kate's ex-husband and asks him, "Did you know she was having an affair with my husband?" He responds, "Yes, but I didn't tell you because you were pregnant and close to giving birth." Beth later meets Zane at a restaurant and tells him everything. He asks her, "Do you think Rob could have killed her?" She replies, "No." Zane advises her not to trust people so easily and to rely on her instincts. They also discuss his wife, who was a doctor in Syria and died in a bombing, because he was late to pick her up. Beth consoles him, saying, "It's not your fault. It was her destiny." Later, Beth confronts Rob over the phone, telling him she knows about his affair with Kate. He tries to apologize, but she hangs up on him. Suddenly, Police storm into her room and accuse her of killing Kate out of revenge after discovering the affair. At the station, they question her about her relationship with Zachariah, Zane, and she learns he is allegedly involved with an Albanian mafia gang involved in crimes like human trafficking. She denies the accusations, saying he was only helping her search for Kate. She then requests a lawyer. When the lawyer arrives, she is released and warned not to speak to the police again without her lawyer present. Upon returning home, she finds Zane waiting for her. She asks him, "How did you get in?" He responds, "Sebastian let me in." When she confronts him about his alleged ties to the mafia, Zane explains that he once saved the son of an Albanian mafia leader from shrapnel in Syria, and in return, the mafia helped him obtain a visa to leave Aleppo for Turkey, and eventually reach his current location. However, he denies being involved in any criminal activities. Beth tells him, "I don't know who to trust anymore." He replies, "Trust your heart." Beth later discovers a hidden surveillance camera in her room and decides to sneak into Sebastian's studio, where he records his music. There, she finds that he has installed cameras in all the apartments in the building and monitors the residents. While reviewing the footage from the day of Kate's disappearance, she sees the two young men stealing Kate's bag. However, Kate later exits and takes a taxi to follow them. Beth notes down the taxi's license plate. She also notices another car with a distinctive logo parked outside the building. When Sebastian returns, Beth accuses him of reporting her after she discovered Rob's affair with Kate. They argue, and she flees. As she leaves, she accidentally bumps into Zane and apologizes. Zane teaches her self-defense moves and where to strike an attacker. Later, Zane traces the taxi Kate took and contacts the driver. The driver reveals that Kate asked him to follow the car of the men who stole her bag, but eventually lost them. The driver then dropped Kate off at the police station. At the same time, Beth's photo is broadcast on TV as a suspect in Kate's murder. Police cars arrive, and Officer Pavage steps out of one of them. Beth notices the same distinctive logo from the car in the surveillance footage. She recalls that Pavage refused to file her complaint when she reported Kate's disappearance, and had also ignored Kate's report about her stolen bag. Beth and Zane flee, but the police catch Zane. He tells the investigator everything. Meanwhile, Pavage chases Beth but falls from a high place and dies in front of the investigator. The investigator reveals that Pavage had previous harassment complaints filed against him by female suspects in morality cases, but no evidence was ever found against him. When reviewing the surveillance footage, they see Pavage pushing Kate into the sea. The forensic report confirms that Kate was struck on the head but didn't die immediately. She drowned. Beth returns to her home country and separates from Rob. When she drops off their daughter at his place, she asks for the spare key to her car. She is shocked to find a black onyx stone in his pocket, part of the necklace Kate had gifted her. Beth locks herself in the bathroom and calls the investigator, but Rob knocks on the door. She exits while leaving the call connected. She confronts Rob, saying she knows everything. Rob admits that he traveled to convince Kate to leave him alone, but she refused. It is revealed, however, that he was the one who wanted to continue the relationship, while Kate refused because she loved Beth and regretted betraying her. Rob admits that he pushed Kate, causing her to fall and hit a rock before drowning. He insists it was an accident, but Beth counters, saying the forensic report proves Kate didn't die immediately but drowned. When Rob begs her not to report him, arguing that their daughter needs her father, Beth responds, "It's better for her to grow up without a father than with a murderer." Rob tries to attack her, but Beth defends herself using the moves Zane taught her. She grabs her daughter and leaves the apartment. Police cars arrive at the scene, and the film ends.